Hello and welcome to The Punter, your regular look ahead at the weekend betting action. I'm Russ Wiseman from Sporting Bet, and joining me today we've got two industry stalwarts, experts in the field of sports betting. We've got the top man from Stan James, Rory Jiwani, and of course trader, sports betting expert extraordinaire, David Garbacz, making his second appearance on the show. Boys, it's been a fascinating week so far, hasn't it? We've got the World Cup to go over in a minute, all the friendly action. But just a quick word on news earlier in the week, big news actually from Europol about potential match fixing in football. We've probably heard rumours about this over the years, but some official news this time, Rory. I mean, obviously you representing one of the major bookmakers. I mean, do you really see this kind of stuff hit home in terms of trades and bets? I think for 99% of punters and 99% of games, the games we'll be discussing later, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. But obviously there is the odd one, and you know, I think they talked about like dead rubbers in European games, like Champions League possibly and Europa League, where it can happen. But I don't think it's something we'll see a great deal of. I mean, in the old days it was about spread betting and how that could be manipulated. I was a little surprised by the revelation and the scale of it, but it does seem to be more of an Asian betting thing and not really one that involves us too much. But I'm sure David probably knows more than I do.
Well, I tend to agree with Rory, Dave. I don't really see this hit home with my firm Sporting Bet, but we come from a bygone age where there were some probably more suspicious betting patterns, and you were being a trader and odds comparer in those days. I know that you saw some quite unusual events when well,
there was definitely some games in the early 1990s and late 1990s actually as well. I distinctly remember a couple of Monday night fixtures when the floodlights suddenly went out when a team was sort of 1-0 ahead and all the money had been on the other team prior to the match. And actually, funnily enough, it's quite spooky that this week when all these revelations came out, you had the Man U Fulham game Monday night, the floodlights went out when United couldn't score for love nor money.
The Super Bowl.
And then, of course, the Super Bowl. Baltimore were killing San Francisco 28-6 at the time, and all the money had been on San Francisco prior to the match. So you're thinking, oh my gosh, is there some sort of skullduggery going on there? But I'm sure that for those type of events, it was literally just a case of the electrician not quite doing his job.
Just to stick a few cents in the meter.
That's right.
I tend to agree with the boys. I think we can pretty much bet with confidence. On that note, let's kick on with some of the action. First of all, guys, World Cup betting now. It does come to the highlight of things when we see the top teams playing. We saw in midweek England beat Brazil 2-1, Rory. Not complete shock, but I mean a good performance by England nevertheless. Some of the other top sides in Europe and across the world playing well. And now all of a sudden we're left with this kind of market for the World Cup. It's not too far away though, is it? But your firm, Stan James, going out on a limb with Spain, it looks to me.
Yeah, look a bit too big for my liking, I have to say. I mean, I confess that when Spain won the last European Championship straight afterwards and it experimented with the no striker formation, which I didn't particularly like, but I just can't believe that they're not the favourites, personally speaking. I mean, obviously Brazil will have home advantage. Argentina, of course, there was that stat before Spain won in South Africa about, you know, did no team from outside the continent, I think since Brazil in Sweden in '58. But I think Spain are just too big. We have taken a bit of money for England in midweek on the back of that win. I wouldn't read too much into that. England were good. I mean, Jack Wilshere was excellent. Brazil were barely out of third gear to my eyes, and I think we'll see a lot better. But I think the thing with Brazil is it's not a vintage Brazil side.
That's a fair point there, Dave, I think. I mean, would you bet on an event this far out, Dave? I mean, obviously, probably the main reason for Spain is that European team's got a desperate record in South America.
I certainly wouldn't bet
what would you do?
On this type of event this far out, purely because I need to preserve whatever cash I've got. But
and by the way, that's a serious point because people don't want to have the
it is a serious point, yeah. To bet on an event sort of 15, 16 months before it's due to take place, I think is ridiculous. Also before the actual qualification process is finished as well. All the teams you've got in that caption there will all qualify. I think even England, although they do have a pretty tricky couple of games against Serbia to come next month. Brazil are worthy favourites really, 7-2. There's been so many examples in recent World Cups about how home advantage has actually come to the fore. Italy and
South Korea getting to the semis.
South Korea getting to the semis. Even South Africa last time doing quite well as well. And you saw in midweek the likes of Fred, Ronaldinho, these are two players who not going to get anywhere near the Brazil team come the World Cup. There's going to be a young, youthful, skillful team dominated by people like Oscar and Neymar. And when they've got that they weren't, they really were not out of, as Rory said, out of third gear.
It didn't matter.
And I don't think, all the hype that went on in England from the pundits saying, how fantastic they were, and how if we beat Brazil, then we must have a great chance of winning.
And we've beaten Spain as well, so we must be.
One team that weren't on that list though, Belgium 66-1. That's the one side I think that people have. They seem to be the fashionable, trendy side. Let's move on to the Premier League. Big weekend last weekend. United pulling further clear, guys. As we can see now, this is a significant gap now, 9 points. Rory, we're going to look at the betting probably again in a minute, but it genuinely is looking as though United are around trading very, very short now indeed. We're starting to talk more about what's going to happen in fourth place now, but here we look at the
1
current
to
10 on.
That says it all, doesn't
Painful, isn't it, really, to watch?
It's I wonder when one firm's going to pay out on United being champions.
Won't be Stan James.
It won't be Stan James, no. We don't go in for that sort of thing.
It's not over yet, though, is it, Dave? But listen, City now really bang under it. They needed to win last week.
The difference between this year and last year is that last year, although City were 9 or 10 points behind, actually at a later stage than this, you always felt that the United team of last year were not actually that good, and that they were potentially catchable. And City had that. They always had that sort of bit of impetus behind them, even though they had a bit of a gap to catch up. This year, United genuinely are playing a hell of a lot more better than Manchester City are. In Van Persie, they've got that extra dimension. They've got so many options up
Rooney's
front.
just started hitting
Rooney's
form
really
as well.
They just don't stop winning, do they, frankly? That's the biggest problem. Quick back look at the table here now. We'll look at the top four betting in a minute, but it's worth just looking at the table briefly, because you do get a kind of a profile and a view as to what may happen in terms of top four betting. Right bang in it now, a lot of these teams, and even Liverpool, are just not completely adrift. Let's have a look at the betting there for the top four. We touched on this list last week, didn't we, David? And we mentioned Everton were potential dark horses to maybe sneak into that, but is it cut and dried? Is it going to be between Spurs and Arsenal for that fourth spot, or can we still start making a case for the likes of the Merseyside teams?
Well, I think the good news for all those teams in that caption is that Chelsea are so bad. Another terrible defeat last week against Newcastle, and to finish, what does it stand, James, there at 1-5 to finish in the top four. I'd love to know what the other side is, what we can potentially lay them at, because they're just on a real old slippery slope, and I can see them actually, I can really see them potentially struggling to maintain that, unless he does something very dramatic and maybe change the manager yet again and bring in Mourinho, but I doubt that's going to happen till the end of the season. But there's such little confidence under Benitez, it's ridiculous.
And we'll touch on Chelsea a little bit later on, won't we, Roy? When you have a look, let's have a look at the relegation markets now, on the bottom of the table as well, especially. QPR are adrift, and there's no doubt about that. And they needed to beat Norwich last week. You mentioned that quite clearly, Dave. They didn't do that, so they're bang under it. But this is a great betting market now, because I know pretty much anyone on that caption could go down. Here we go, Rory. There's your firm's prices alongside my own. There'll be plenty of people, I think, Rory, be looking to be tempted in by that 8-13 about Villa at the moment, because they just don't do any winning, do they?
They don't, but I think the one crumb of comfort for Villa fans is that they do have a goal scorer in Christian Benteke, and I think that is going to be vital. QPR can't score goals at the moment. Villa have a scorer. Reading have a scorer in Adam Lafondra, and Jimmy Kebe's just started to hit form. Wigan are struggling to score goals. Southampton have Ricky Lambert. Norwich, I think Norwich will be okay, although they are struggling to score goals, no doubt. But I think I can't see any way QPR can get out of it. But I'd say it's pretty close between the rest. I think Newcastle are going to be all right. I did tip them to go down a few weeks ago, and I said you'd get a run for your money, and you did briefly. But then they signed Moussa Sissoko, who seems to have almost single-handedly transformed that team. And but we also have odds to stay up, and I quite like them. Reading to stay up, I think they'll be fine. And Villa, if you fancy them to stay up at 6-5, I think that I just got a feeling they'll be okay.
The problem we've got with this market, isn't it, Dave? And we'll look at to finish rock bottom in a minute. Is every week you can literally change your mind, because team. Literally, it can work that way. Right now, Norwich are my team. I think they look as though they're fading badly. But here we got to finish rock bottom with Stan James, Dave. QPR occupy that place at the moment. Spent a lot of cash, obviously. If you were going to part with a gentle apple core on this, what would you do? I mean, I'm still looking at Villa.
I would definitely not to finish rock bottom. I don't think. No, potentially to go down, despite what Rory said. Benteke is a fabulous player. Yeah. They just don't seem to be getting the wins, and how upsetting for them last week that they were 3-1 up away at Everton and still couldn't come away with the 3 points. It just feels there's some sort of curse around the manager at the moment that they can't quite get the wins that they need. So you think they might just not escape. But with regards to this particular market, I can look no further than the team who currently occupy that position, Queen's Park Rangers. I think 7-4 is actually not a bad price. They're 4 points adrift, are they not? Yes, they are 4 points adrift at the bottom. And he just hasn't bought the right players, in my opinion. He's spent lots of money, but it's defence, defence, defence. And if you looked at their team last week, after the January transfer window, you know, who did they have up front and what options did they have on the bench?
Well, they signed Remy, didn't he? And now he's injured. I don't know.
Remy's injured, so you've got Bobby Zamora, and literally, you know, you can't keep drawing 0-0 every week and expect to stay up. So 7-4 for me, QPR, that's the bet.
7-4 for David QPR to go down then. So the boys have summed up nicely the long-term betting markets, but make sure you stay tuned, because after the break we'll be looking ahead at the weekend action and all the best bets for the Premier League and all the other sports as well. And welcome back to part 2 of The Punter. Now we're back into the element of the show where we're really going to kick on now and look ahead at the weekend betting action. And of course, boys, I'm expecting you both here to really come up trumps. David, you've been very good. Rory, you've been good in the past as well. Let's go straight away into the 12:45 kick-off, Spurs v Newcastle. A great game traditionally. I mean, we've traded this game years ago, David, in Sporting X when we were spread betting, and always goals, always excitement. This is the kind of game, actually, that will see big betting turnover, I would have thought, Rory. And the 4-6 that you are about Spurs, would you expect people to start wading into that?
I'm not sure. I think Newcastle are the more attractive option. As I said, mentioned Moussa Sissoko, that win over Chelsea last weekend. Bit of momentum behind them, I think, now. And Spurs, striker problems. Defoe's injured. Adebayor's back from the Africa Cup of Nations. I mean, you're looking at Gareth Bale being probably their main goal threat this weekend. So I think I'm not sure we'll get that many takers for the 4-6. I think Spurs are vulnerable at the moment.
Dave, I mean, I think Spurs are a team I'm looking to oppose them on, but Newcastle away from home, not really a team you'd have enormous faith in. And Rory mentioned Bale there. I mean, they are almost completely reliant on this guy, and he's one of the great players in the league, isn't he? But I know you're not a Spurs stalwart, but I mean, would you play them here around about the shade of
I think what is going to be very interesting this week when you're deciding which bets to place is you have a look at the players who in midweek had tough international fixtures. And Gareth Bale once again carried a very mediocre Wales team all by himself to an excellent friendly result against Austria. Last week he was the complete difference in their 1-0 win against West Brom. The week before he scored a fabulous goal as well. How much longer can this guy continue to just do it all by himself effectively? And with Defoe out, and I think he's going to come back from the midweek game in Wales a little bit tired, and I don't believe that he'll be able to really come to the heights of recent games this week. And with him not on top form, Spurs are a big lay at 4-6. Newcastle, most of their players will have been rested in midweek. They wouldn't have had international fixtures. They have been on a reasonably good run since he improved things in January, and I agree. I think 4-1's a decent option.
Yeah, I suppose only one win away from home all season is a little bit of a worry. But let's look at the first goal scorer betting, and it's a really good point that David makes there about the midweek fixtures, wear and tear on players. That is traditionally a way to look here. Anything really jumping out there? I mean, we're expecting Adebayor to come back from this African Nations Cup. I don't know what kind of mental condition he'll be in, because he is a little bit of a temperamental player. But Bale obviously jumps out, even though David mentions quite right there, he has had a difficult midweek. Can we make any cases for him? I mean, 6 great players on the list there. I mean, is there anyone who jump out there for you, Rory?
I think I keep mentioning him. I think Sissoko obviously scored twice against Chelsea, and I'm a little bit annoyed because last week I backed, in a wincast, I backed Cabaye to score at any time and Newcastle to win at quite good odds, and obviously it was Sissoko. And Sissoko seems to be a bit more forward-minded, joining the attack, and he looks a fantastic player. So think there's probably some value in Sissoko at 14 to 1 and maybe backing him to score at any time as well. And similarly for Bale, backing him to score first and to score at any time.
Dave, we'll have a quick look at the overs and unders here, but for me, just looking at the first goal scorer betting, when you see someone like Dempsey trading 5 to 1, 9 to 2, who frankly isn't even a striker, it gives you an idea that maybe this game isn't going to possess a lot of goals. The overs are still a favourite though, 8 to 11 with Stan James, 13 to 20 with my firm Sporting Bet. I mean, it's a coin flip market, but it's a tradable market this as well. If you think they're going to be a cagey start, how would you play this one?
I've got to say, I can't really have much of an opinion on the overs and unders in this game. It's not like you look at both teams in this particular fixture and think they're massively high-scoring teams, you know, like a Reading or an Arsenal or a Man United or something like that. Or on the other hand, you don't look at them and think, well, they're very low-scoring teams like a QPR or a Norwich or something like that. So it's a real, you mentioned the word flip of a coin. This really is a flip of a coin. It all depends on whether you get an early goal. I think if you put a gun to my head, I'd have to go under. Evens, I think that's represents just a little bit more value than the 8 to 11 odds on.
I think you're right. Moving swiftly on now, Chelsea versus Wigan. We've already touched upon Chelsea. Rory Benitez occupies all sorts of lists at the moment, top of the list, next manager to go. His team here trading around about 3s on to beat a Wigan side who it's really folly to write this team off, and they're starting to come to that part of the season when these do pick up here. Dave's already touched upon it as well, dangerously in trouble maybe for the top 4. Can we really start wading in at 3s on for a team like this at the moment?
Definitely not. I mean, last season they did it, Wigan. They, as you mentioned, near the end of the season they started producing almost title-winning form. It was incredible. I think they did win at Stamford Bridge as well last season, late on in the season, if memory serves. This is the sort of game that they could well win, and especially against a Chelsea side who have not been great at home. And I think Benitez admitted a few weeks ago that they're a better side away from a home just because of the way they play. I mean, obviously Lampard's hit form for them, which is a real bonus. Juan Mata's in good form. Is Demba Ba out? He might be out with his broken nose, I guess. But I cannot have Chelsea as a back at 1 to 3, and I think the draw represents pretty decent value in this one.
Dave, Chelsea have stuck 8 past Wigan in this fixture before. So obviously there's the potential for a landslide. But again, I mean, I would imagine you'd be particularly keen on playing them at 3 on in a game like this.
No, I think there's going to be a lot of more interesting games from a betting point of view to play over the weekend. Rory's absolutely right. You can't wade into Chelsea at 3s on the basis of the Benitez factor, their home form factor, the fact that the fans are basically can't stand the team at the moment. But against that, Wigan away, they're no great shakes themselves, so I wouldn't necessarily be trusting them to pull out some sort of victory or heroic draw stand or something like that. But
I think it's a bit harsh of you saying that, considering went to your side. Arsenal won last season, so I mean it's a at the Emirates. So I mean, not,
you've been saving that one, haven't you?
Not the worst outfit in the world, surely not.
No, fair point. But nevertheless, I can see this being a tight sort of maybe 1-0, 2-0 Chelsea win, but definitely not betting material on that.
Okay, let's move on to Norwich versus Fulham now. Now, I looked at this game just before we came on air to film the punter today, and if I could back neither team, I would. I mean, right now, Fulham away, Norwich at home, it is painfully difficult. I'm almost forced into backing the draw from a personal point of view. 5 to 4 or 13 to 10 with Stan James there for Norwich. Fulham away from home just don't do the business traditionally, do they, Rory? And you're getting just a shade above 2 to 1 about that. I mean, like I say, the 12 to 5 the draw here makes perfect sense to me.
Makes great appeal, as does the 0-0 draw. Not sure what price that is, but I think these are two teams struggling for goals, and you know, if we look at under-overs, play the unders on this one, because I mean, Norwich have scored just 14 goals at home this season. Fulham have scored just 15 goals away this season. You don't forecast a lot of goals in this game, so under's definitely the way to go, and I'll definitely be having a go at the 0-0.
That's an interesting point. Dave, any thoughts on
I
this
would have thought that a firm as innovative as Stan James might have come up with a market, which game will appear last on Match of the Day. And there's no doubt that this one would be trading at odds on, because it has all the hallmarks of an absolute shocker.
9 to 1 no goal scorer as well. Which
9 to 1 no goal scorer is
really fair price, isn't it? As well?
Is a decent
Tradable
price. Norwich, you mentioned how many goals they've scored in 14 games. They've actually only scored 1 in their last 5 games. And Fulham, you know, maybe 2 or 3 in their last 5 as well. So it's one to avoid. But if you want to have a bet you got to back the draw or 0-0.
I think that's a good shout as well.
Yeah.
Stoke Reading next, guys. Now, Reading obviously in the form table here, third currently in the last 6 games, really flying high. Rory, you mentioned that they could probably get out of this, but you know, this Britannia, I've been to the Britannia many times, I know Tony plays quite well. This is a brutally difficult place to go for any side. If you're not physically up for the challenge, this Stoke side will run over you. And all of a sudden now, Stoke probably, because of Reading's good form, I think there'll be plenty of takers for just a shade under even money here for Stoke.
Do you think? I'm not really sure. I think this could go either way. I think this is a tricky one to call because
they're in
Reading,
a mess in the league, Stoke. They're 2 points from 18, so you're right. I mean, maybe.
And I think
full
Reading
table really give them
they're in great form, and they've got Adam Lafondre is scoring goals for them. I think he just won Player of the Month for a grand total of 100 minutes on the pitch or something ridiculous like that. So they've got there's a real feel-good factor in that Reading side. But as you say, the Britannia Stadium is a very, very difficult place to go. I think this is definitely one game I'll be looking to avoid because I just think there are so many different scenarios in this, and I think it's a really difficult game to call.
Dave, any thoughts?
I saw a caption of the form table in the Premier League over the last 6 games before we came on air, and Reading actually lie third behind Man United and Man City, and Stoke lie 1 from bottom, just ahead of West Bromwich Albion. And as you say, 2 points from a possible 18, whereas Reading have won 5 out of their last 6. So all the form suggests that this could potentially be a decent bet, 3-1 Reading, and I can see why people might come in and take that. However, there's something in my silly little head here that
the
sort
spider
of
sense is tingling.
yeah, which actually is telling me that 9-10 Stoke, or just under even money Stoke, is not too bad a bet. I mean, I just keep harping back to the fact that one of the best games I've been to so far this season was when Reading played Arsenal, and Arsenal tore them apart 5-2, and I've never seen a worse team on the day. Since then, they've obviously improved a lot, but I just think Stoke at home, they're going to start. I have to start recapturing a bit of form. And if anything, I think they're a decent bet at just under odds on.
I think that's a good shout, actually, Dave. I think it's one of those times we can probably forget the
full table.
Yeah. Sunderland versus Arsenal next, guys. I mean, you look at these two sides at the moment. I mean, they're both enigmas in their own right, aren't they? But Sunderland, generally, that's a difficult place to go. But Arsenal, Dave, your side, I mean, do you feel as though they're the kind of team at the moment, the kind of form that they can probably play counter-attacking game? I don't think Martin O'Neill will overcommit in this game, though. Surely not.
Well, I mentioned previously about how Gareth Bale might be a bit tired due to his midweek exertions for Wales, and in the same vein, the 2 main men for Arsenal at the moment, Wilshere and Walcott, also might very well just be suffering from a little bit of tiredness from their midweek exertions as well. I wouldn't be surprised to see Monsieur Wenger pull out one of his great tactical moves and keep them both on the bench for this fixture, which will obviously antagonise a lot of Arsenal fans, but we'll see whether he does or whether he doesn't. Saying that, even whether they start, this is, as you say, a difficult place to go. But Arsenal really are the type of team where you just don't know quite what you're going to get.
I guess the question for me to ask you is, just short of even money, are you a backer or a layer of Arsenal? I mean, forget the fact that you're a major fan.
I'm not a backer this week.
Okay.
Mainly because of that reason I just said, because I think they're so reliant on Wilshere and Walcott. I don't think those two will be on as top performers they might have been had they not had the game in midweek.
Quick word from you on this one, Rory.
Sunderland, tough to beat. Tough to beat, Sunderland. And possibly not a win, but I think the draw at 13-5 is a good bet in this one. I think Sunderland, it could be a messy one, could be a scrappy one. And you say about Wilshere and Walcott, you know, I think the draw's probably the way to go in this one.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Not an easy fixture to call this one. Final game we'll look at in this particular portion, Swansea versus QPR. Guys, go back to the opening day of the season. I went on this show. I went on a variety of shows, actually, and suggested that QPR were the biggest certainty of all time to beat Swansea. They've duly beaten 5-0. It was one of my finest moments. Obviously, we've now discovered that QPR aren't any good. Swansea are very good, and they've got a terrific manager. And this is a team, David, that simply just don't fail, do they? They've just continued this. It's not luck at this point now. We've got a big portion of the season gone. They're 5-6, and I can see that many people will take the 5-6 in this game.
Well, I think that QPR, week in, week out, they continuously keep getting overpriced as opposed to how they're actually playing on the pitch. I mean, I mentioned it in part 1. Queen's Park Rangers do not have any forward attacking players of any real talent at the moment. And Harry Redknapp, for all his great wheeling and dealing, I don't think he's brought the right players to the club. And so you see a match like this, Swansea 5-6, and they've done nothing wrong and nothing to suggest. I mean, if this was an Everton or a Tottenham or an Arsenal, you'd be seeing quotes of 1-3, 2-7. So 5-6, for me, represents, I think, it's one of the standout bets of the week. I mean, it's pile-on material.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Rory. QPR love a 0-0. They've played a lot of goal draws.
0-0 is essential.
9-1 here is a no goal
scorer
scorer bet here.
Yeah.
Almost, you've alwast got to have that in your bank as a save, haven't you? Really,
you do. And I mean, and Swansea they are struggling to score goals at the moment. So the no goal scorer bet is a good bet. But as you say, I think Swansea should win this. They're very good at home, and QPR, although they're hard to beat, you just wonder where the goals are going to come from.
Okay, well, I think we're fairly unanimous on that. Then we'll leave that for part 2. Then Swansea should do the business against QPR. After the break, we'll look at all the TV games from Saturday, Sunday, and indeed Monday. Join us after this break. Thanks for coming back to us here on The Punter. We're into part 3 now, and of course we're looking at the big televised games this weekend. Rory, we're going to start off straight away. It's Southampton Man City here. We'll go to you for the overs and unders in a minute shortly, Rory, here. But Dave, I mean, Southampton, I know they're a team you quite like, haven't you? You've got quite a lot of affinity for Southampton. But City, I mean, you talk about must win. They simply have to win this game, don't they? And I always think these 5:30 kickoffs, I can guarantee you now, having been in the industry a long time, like both of you, that I think the money will flood in for City in this game.
They'll flood in for City for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is so incredibly must-win for them. And number two, the great Yaya Toure is back from the African Cup of Nations, and he's such a massive influence for them on the pitch. Saying that, Southampton, since they really made that very bold decision of sacking Nigel Adkins and replacing him with this Argentinian fellow, Pochettino, is that his name? Pochettino, that's it. They do play some attractive football, and they are very, very attack-minded. Of course, this weekend sees the reverse fixture of all the games that we saw on the opening day of the season. For those who remember this fixture on the opening day of the season, Southampton were actually leading at the Etihad Stadium 2-1 with not too long to go, before eventually losing 3-2. And they gave them a really good game. Man City last week against Liverpool, they were torn apart by Sturridge, let's face it, and Liverpool really could quite easily have got all 3 points from that match. It was only a fabulous goal by Aguero that saved them a point. So you might think that somebody like Ricky Lambert could do a similar sort of job against them that Sturridge did last week. I think if any bookmakers are going to be taking big bets laying Man City this weekend, that they could well be earning themselves a decent bonus come Saturday night. I fancy Southampton to get something out of the game. Not necessarily saying they're going to win, but to get something out of the game.
No, I think it's a good call actually as well, and you can't ignore the fact that Liverpool were the better side in that game. Overs and unders here, Rory. Fascinating stats here. 25 games both of these teams have played. They've both gone over in 13, so we're pretty much right down the middle here about over and under. And of course, the overs are favourite, but I tend to agree with David here. Southampton's so attack-minded, difficult to see a shortage of goals in this one.
It's strange though, when Adkins was in charge, I'd have definitely said overs, because they scored goals and they leaked goals as well. Under Pochettino, they seem a little more, although they're still very attack-minded, they seem a bit more solid at the back. And so I'm finding it really difficult to get involved in this one. I think on the match odds, I think Manchester City are a lay. I agree with you there, but I'd find it very difficult to get involved in the overs and unders goals.
Fair enough. Let's move on to Sunday's action now. Villa playing West Ham here. I mean, this is the first game. This is incredibly difficult for me again. I think a lot of these fixtures this weekend are quite tricky. I think both of these sides, you could probably put a squiggle next to both of them at the moment. But 6-4 Villa here, Rory. You're a big price here about West Ham now, 15-8.
We are, and this weekend, as of Saturday morning, we will be top price, industry price about West Ham. They're not great away from home. Villa, as I've suggested, I think their luck's going to change, and I think that's our reason for going top price West Ham. Villa might not necessarily win it, but the reason for going top price West Ham is obviously you've got the draw in there is running for us as well. And I think Villa, they've got goals in them. West Ham away from home, I'm not so sure. And it's this is the sort of game that Villa do need to be winning as well. We've talked about Manchester City at Southampton. You could say the same for Villa at home to West Ham here.
Yeah.
They were unlucky against Everton, I think. They got into a winning position, they lost it. So they'll be very determined to win this weekend. And I think Villa are probably the play in this one.
6 from 7 they've lost as well here, West Ham away in the last 7 games, 6 from 7. Pretty dismal record, David. I mean, look at the overs and unders here. I always love seeing the Villa badge be prepared. That's exactly what you'd hope they would be, because if they're not, it's not going to be any good, is it? But I mean, again, coin flip here, overs and unders, isn't it? 10 to 11, 4 to 5.
I've got a bit of a view on this one, actually. I think 10 to 11 is a decent price for the over.
Okay.
Villa, they can't afford to sit back on their laurels in the position that they're currently in.
They do need to win, Villa. It's a fair point.
They really do need to win, so they're not going to be, going for sort of a 1-0 or 0-0, that type of situation at all. They were very good last week from an attacking point of view as well, but you always think that they're going to leak goals at the back. On the other hand, and West Ham, in their favour this week, do have Andy Carroll back, and he scored last week, which was a big fillip for them. And so I think they could score. West Ham can score. Anyone can score, really, against Villa. And Benteke's in fabulous form. I think the overs are a play.
OK, so let's move on to the 4 o'clock kickoff now on Sunday. Manchester United against Everton. Boys, this was the game last year, frankly, that did it for United, when it 4-4 draw. I was at this game. Incredible fixture. Everton were the better side, no question about it. Fellaini just completely bossed this game. And, I mean, there will be a memory, I think, for United fans. But, Rory, your views on this one? You're 4 to 6 about United. It looks juicy to me, and but Everton, a team you just can't write off at any stage, can you really?
Yeah, and again, like the last game we discussed, we're actually be going top price Manchester United this weekend, which may sound surprising, but as you say, last season 4-4. This season, Everton won at Goodison Park first weekend. I think it was the Monday night game.
That's right.
So that's the reason to get stuck into United. And you do wonder with United, they keep falling behind at home, and then obviously they keep turning it round. How long are they going to keep getting away with this? Everton, I think, have got a chance in this, and that's why we're going top price Manchester United. Will also be top price first and last goal scorers, all the correct scores, the double results, and over and under 2.5 goals, and the same is for the last match we talked about. But I wouldn't be wanting to back Manchester United at 4 to 6. We'll be top price, so if you do want to back United, you can do it with us, but I think Everton have got a real sniff in this one.
Got to give Stan James some credit for doing that, Dave, taking on United here. And let's not forget as well, and you'll have a view on this, I know, it's Wednesday night they're playing Real Madrid. I mean, surely it's almost beyond comprehension they haven't got an eye on that massive fixture. That's
a great point. Yeah, we mentioned last week actually how with European games coming up midweek they might just rest a couple of the bigger players. Rooney, Van Persie both played midweek. We've mentioned this a few times today. I think what I would say to punters looking at this game is have a look at the team sheet, at the team news. Leave it till as late as you possibly can.
In this game,
It's critical because A, from a United's perspective, who they're going to leave out with Real Madrid in mind, and B, the main thing, Marian Fellaini, who tore them apart first game of the season when Everton won 1-0. They couldn't handle him at all. However, there's a slight injury doubt over him. I think he's got a hip problem. If he's starting and 1 or 2 of the United big guns aren't starting, then 3-1, 7-2 Everton is a really decent bet. And let's face it, the Premier League needs United to lose.
That's right as well. A very quick peek, and I couldn't agree more on that one, by the way. Very quick peek on the overs and unders. I mean, 4-4 last year. I mean, all of a sudden you think 8-13 is the biggest gift of all time. Very quick word, Dave. Any thoughts? I mean, it's difficult to imagine a game United where there aren't goals. They still are the most exciting and the most pump-worthy team in this market, aren't they?
They definitely are. Saying that 8-13 is not a price I could ever bet 2.5 overs, over 2.5 goals at. Although you think that it looks very, very certain that it might well be the case. I wouldn't have a bet on that market because the odds makers look like they've got that one spot on, really.
I agree with you. So let's move on to Liverpool West Brom now. We'll get your thoughts on this one, David. I mean, like I said, Liverpool for me were very impressive last week against Manchester City, against the champions. I do think Liverpool, traditionally, we've been in bookmaking a long time, those guys, that you do try to take on Liverpool, but I've got this feeling that things are starting to turn around from them. They seem to have a different energy to them. 4-11, that's still over bet, I think, in most games. They were 4-11 at Sporting Bet, 2-5 Stan James, but West Brom are in turmoil, really, aren't they? They're just not performing at all well at the moment.
They really are. We had a look at we mentioned the form table a few minutes ago, and West Brom lie bottom of the form table, even below the great Queen's Park Rangers. And Liverpool are sort of doing pretty well, actually. They're in fourth and over the last 6 games. Last week they were superb. The only worry, if you're going to pile into Liverpool at big odds on, is that are they going to be raising themselves for the big matches and maybe not quite putting in as much effort for a smaller match, which is obviously is. You know, they've taken great points away to Man City and Arsenal in their last 2 Premier League fixtures, but all of a sudden they come up against a West Brom team who they really should beat. And are they going to slightly take their foot off the gas and not be quite as much up for it? Saying that, I think they should probably still win.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Rory, the overs and unders here. I mean, people do pile into Liverpool to do the business. They smashed Norwich recently at home. I think the Anfield faithful will be expecting a convincing win. You're 8-13, the over 2.5. Happy to lay that price?
It's skinny, isn't it? It is skinny, but Liverpool are in good form. They are scoring goals, so that's probably why it is so skinny. I think over 2.5, although it is skinny odds, I think you'd probably collect on that, and there could be some value in the over 3.5. West Brom in dismal form, although I'm sure I did see a stat, and it's the only thing that stops me piling into Liverpool. Have they failed to beat another team from the top 10 in the Premier League this season? It's something like that. And West Brom are just hanging on in 9th place. So you know, that's the only thing that's preventing me. And I think you could even work backing Liverpool in the handicap, you know, with West Brom getting a goal start. But it does look like probably the home bank for the weekend.
I tend to agree. I think Liverpool will probably do the business. That's it for the football. The boys have given you plenty of ammunition there to get stuck into this weekend. After the break, we'll look at the Six Nations. David was in great form in this last week, and it was talked about as being the finest opening weekend of Six Nations rugby ever. So let's look at this weekend's games just after this break. Welcome back to the final part of this week's Punter. I'm Russ Wiseman, joined by Rory Jiwani from Stan James and sports betting expert David Garbacz. We're now looking ahead at this weekend's Six Nations action. And boys, it was spoken about last week, wasn't it? It was a fantastic weekend of action, really, wasn't it? A great opening weekend. Great for punters as well, Dave. And you did particularly well. I mean, Viva Italia, if you want to say, rather than Viva France, wasn't it, last week for you?
Well, I did mention it last week that Italy are always underrated every single year in, year out in the Six Nations. They're always big underdogs, whoever they play, whether at home or away. And I just thought that France, who are perennial slow starters to this competition, would struggle to cover the 12-point handicap. But what was more pleasing was the fact that actually when they went 8-0 in front after about 15-20 minutes, there didn't seem to be any reaction to that. And people did seem to completely dismiss the idea that they could actually win the game. And amazingly enough, I did end up backing them at 6-1 to win the game. So every dog has his day, as they say.
I mean, Roy, just a quick point on this, because obviously Stan James known for being betting and running experts. I mean, you can only react as a trader, though, can't you, to the money that you see? So, absolutely. I mean, I know, having seen the betting logs at Sporting Bet that weekend, that the money was still coming in, rather than the shrewd stuff from David there, for France, even when they were behind in that game. It was a terrific result for bookmakers generally, wasn't it?
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, France are slow starters, not just to tournaments, but to games as well. It can take them to a little while to get going, and it's a brilliant result, really. Especially, we had a good result, well, a bad result actually. Ireland winning, because Ireland had been well backed against Wales. England, Scotland, that late try probably ruined a few handicap bets on that. But a really exciting one. I didn't get involved last weekend because so many of these teams are in transition. And you want to see how they're sort of set up and how they attack things. And now we've seen with Scotland, okay, they lost, but they are capable of scoring tries now. Italy is capable of scoring points. Wales look in trouble. France don't look particularly hot. England, I still think the jury's still out. They beat New Zealand, they beat Scotland. they're going to have a much tougher test this weekend.
Let's look at the head of this weekend's games. We talk about David. Congratulations for back in the team. Talking of Italy, of course, they then go to Scotland, and I can't remember seeing Italy away from home at such a short price, David. We usually speak about big handicaps, big head starts for Italy, but this is being called pretty close at the moment, isn't it? And I mean, I know we're 15 to 8, it's the biggest price probably Italy in the business there at Sporting Bet, but any views on this one? Because Scotland, the team at the moment, who just don't seem to be able to get the job done ever.
I can't desert my beautiful Italians, to be perfectly honest.
And you've got money to play with, obviously.
This, before the tournament started, was always being billed as the big game as far as the wooden spoon is concerned. Now, certainly from Scotland's perspective, it's massive, isn't it? And if they lose this, then you'd think that they're home and host for the wooden spoon. From an Italian point of view, I still think they're being undervalued. I mean, I would definitely not have Scotland as much, I think, as 4 to 5 point favourites on the handicap, judging on last week's performances. I mean, you can say what you like about France being slow starters and all that sort of stuff, but Italy was absolutely tremendous. There was their fly half, Luciano Orchera, I think is how he's pronounced, was absolutely ran the show. And if he produces anything like a similar performance this week, I think Italy could do the business again. Scotland, they just didn't quite cut it against England, and you always felt that if England stepped up a couple of gears, they could pull away. Scotland, managed to just keep them within touching distance up until the last few minutes there. But I would again be with Italy, not actually on these prices, but I don't know if you have a caption there for the handicap betting today, but I'm certainly interested in Italy +5 or +4 on the handicap.
Interesting show. Before we move on to France, well, very quickly, Rory. I mean, Italy. I mean, the Rome atmosphere. Maybe that. How much do we factor that in from a betting point of view? Clearly, it's easy to play at home. It's a big advantage in rugby as much as anything. But do we think they can take that into Scottish territory and do the business there?
They've won at Murrayfield before.
Yeah.
I mean, I seem to recall it was one game when they had a couple of interception tries and they went about 20-0 up in the first 10 minutes or so, and they held on. I'm inclined to agree with David here. I think Italy are
+4 even money.
+4,
Italy, yeah.
I definitely fancy a bit of Italy. Scotland, as I said, last week it did show that they do score tries now. They have got a decent back three,
which is a big point.
Which is not something they've had for a little while. I think this is the toughest game to call of the weekend, actually.
France and Wales. Clearly, France will be looking for some sort of response here, David. I mean, Wales, just a desperate first half to the game for them. I mean, pretty much similar prices here with our two firms for France. Do they look that much of an obvious favourite? But the handicap here is the key bit, guys. I mean, at 8 and 9, you've got a variety of handicaps to pick from across the industry, of course. But anything that tempts you there, Dave? Because I always think that over a try-head start, whenever it happens. If you actually look at Wales' second half performance, they were pretty good. Let's not forget, Italy had beaten France. So maybe we're overreacting there, giving 9 points to the Welsh.
And it's all good points you make.
And there's lots of them as well, isn't there?
There's lots of them. All I would say is that France, one of the reasons possibly that they were as bad as they were last week was because a lot of their senior players were playing in the Super 14 or they were playing in some big matches the previous week or even actually the previous midweek. Wales were only so good in the second half because Ireland took their foot off the gas. And how often do you see that in games, like American football or rugby, when a team is 25, 30 points up, that they only end up winning by about 10 to 15 points. So I wouldn't really read too much into that. I would look more into the case that they were so bad in that first half. And traditionally, I agree with you, I don't like giving up more than a try in these type of fixtures. But I do think that France, now they're going to be a lot fresher this week. And at home, I actually think they will cover this 8-point handicap. I'd be a backer of France, -8 with Rory's lot at 10 to 11.
One very quick word from you on this one, Roy, because I want to get your views on Ireland versus England. But 8, which way will you play it?
France, I completely agree. I think Wales are in absolute disarray. Obviously, Warren Gatland on Lions duty, Rob Howley at the helm. very disappointing last week. They've got lots of injuries as well.
Just looking at Rory's eyes in that, Dave, you've got to be on France there. I've never seen a bit more convincing. That was the most convincing I've ever seen a guy look in my life.
Certainly the most serious thing he said today.
I'll definitely be getting involved in that one. So Ireland versus England finally, tremendous fixture this, incredibly tight in the betting. I mean, look at this. This is a great game to bet on, and I think in play with both our firms, I think this would be huge, Dave. But what are your thoughts here? Because Ireland are really difficult to beat on their own patch, and the crowd will be maniacal there.
Well, I think that's the massive factor, the crowd and the home advantage. And this is obviously being billed as the title decider, especially based on last week's results. You would think that whichever team out of these two goes on to win this game will win the Six Nations Championship this year. Home advantage, the crowd, it tends to be much louder for an Ireland home game than I think for any other game, and any other team who are in this tournament. You've got the evergreen Brian O'Driscoll, who was again excellent last week. Admittedly, on England's point of view, Owen Farrell had a great game and he looks very solid with the boot. Maybe the next, looks like he is the next Johnny Wilkinson. But it is going to be tight, and in running, you're right, is going to probably be the more sensible way to go. But for those of us who can't resist a little bit of an interest before kick-off, I would tend to go with Ireland, and I see you boys sporting bet are slightly out on a limb at odds against.
Well, we can change that. Rory, your thoughts on this one before you look at the outright for me? I mean, it's incredibly difficult, isn't it?
I have to say I'm all over the odds against for Ireland. On home soil, they are very, very strong. England, as I say, I mean, they beat the All Blacks, they beat Scotland, both at Twickenham. Going to Dublin is going to be a whole different ball game. And I think Owen Farrell will get a really stern examination. The Ireland back row will be after him. Okay. And I think Ireland definitely the way to go.
We'll put the caption up now for the outright. And boys, before we talk about this, I want you to think of your best bets for the weekend before we round off this week's show. But even money England at the moment, 11 to 10 with your firm. Rory with Stan James, fair enough. 7 to 4, Ireland 13 to 8. France, have they played themselves out of this, Dave?
Have they played themselves out of this? I would think no, not yet, because let's face it, they've still got to play England and they've still got to play Ireland. So if they happen to get a decent result against Wales, they're more than capable of still winning those two games as well. And actually, now you come to mention it, they probably represent decent value at 6-1. Considering they were, what was it? I did 15 to 8 or 2 to 1 last week. Of course, they had a terrible result, but maybe time to average for those who piled in.
Your idea of the winner very quickly, Roy, before we sign off.
I can't have England, and I think we're pretty happy to lay that 11 to 10 all day. Okay. Ireland and France, I think the winner will come from those two.
I want one quick bet from you. We're going to leave the show now, but what's one bet for the weekend for you, Rory? What's it going to be for the punters out there?
Wow, Ireland to win, I think is a cracking bet, and the 0-0 in the QPR game.
Two good views there from Rory. Yourself, Dave?
Also in the QPR game, Swansea at 5 to 6. Certainties.
I like it. I was going to tip up Swansea as well, so I think we'll probably leave it at that. Listen, thanks to Rory Jiwani from Stan James, to David Garbacz, sports betting expert, and from myself, Russ Wiseman. Look forward to seeing you soon on the Punter. You've got plenty of ammo to go with there. The boys have really laid it out for you, and I hope you're lucky this weekend. See you soon, and see you next week on the Punter.